Hi, folks, and welcome to the ninth episode of the Vitor Vicente podcast. It's my pleasure today to chat with the British performer and actress Ella Skolimowski, who is based in Ireland, and in a week will be presenting her latest show, Unhooked, at the Smoke Alley Theatre in Dublin. Ella is not new to the themes of sex and love drama. She also explored it in her previous works, such as Porn and Lovesick. So stay with us, and we will hear from Ella her lessons from exploring the human heart. And I hope you will enjoy this episode and express your satisfaction with a thumbs up. It will also be great if you could subscribe to my channel. And I see you in a sec. Hi, Ella.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure. I've been looking forward for this chat for some time, and I think it's a great timing since you would be performing your show in about a week at the beginning of April. So
that's right. Yes, opens at
Yeah.
April 1st at Smoke Alley.
April 1st, yeah, what a day, yeah.
April Fool's Day. I chose it especially for the premiere.
Yeah, I like that. I like when we use like special dates to do special things. Like I was born in Valentine's Day. Just
Oh,
the
lovely.
audience will know. Yeah. So it wasn't my choice. You know, they took me out of my mom's belly. Yeah, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. So
That's nice. It's a nice birthday to have. I like it.
yeah. There are good and bad things about it. But talking about Valentine's and the human heart, which is something
Yes.
you explore quite a lot in your work from many angles, maybe angles that are not consensual or can be controversial. So,
Yes.
in terms of inspiration,
Yes.
where do you collect, let's say, the things that you bring into the stage? Is it from your personal experience or from the people around you, or it's a mixed?
It really is a mix. It really is a mix. So a lot of things will start with something that happened to me or something that happened to a person I'm really close to. And then that will inspire me to start doing some more research around those ideas and those themes. So in porn, for example, I was aware of a few people who during the pandemic had turned to making this kind of amateur content on these platforms that we're all familiar with, you know, the ones that are really accessible, that let you start a new career overnight in this direction. And I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to know if that was a kind of wider social trend. So that set me off doing that piece of research and finding out that, yes, it was something that was on the uptick and that a lot of people were turning to during that period of time. So it will usually start with something that I've observed happen in reality. But I always like to broaden it out and do more research and talk to people and run workshops and find out who else is in a similar situation, just to make sure that the piece is really robust, you know, that it's not actually talking about one tiny little experience, but is representing something that might resonate with lots of different people in the audience.
Yeah. So there's a lot of empirical elements in your work, from your direct observation with others. Of course, like you have your own set of authors that inspire you or somehow are your mentors. But there is a lot that you perceived in your day-to-day life, and then you try to somehow bring into the stage. How much of that is crude and how much of that is cooked? Let's say, when you go to a stage, you need to somehow make it different because you are in front of a few dozens or a few hundreds, or you try to be as realistic as people are in their day-to-day life.
Oh, that is such a good question. I think my practice tends to lean a bit towards realism and naturalism. So sometimes a little episode from reality will end up on the stage really quite unchanged. It might be as it actually occurred. And I think my pieces turn out that way because I'm I am very interested in looking at contemporary social themes. So my work's very sociological, so it makes sense for it to be quite naturalistic and realistic, and not to be kind of having an abstract relationship to those themes. I just actually want to present them, to use the theatre as a framing device to show you something that happens, something that you've seen, but maybe not have the time to think about and absorb the consequences of.
Yeah. Do you think that helps to resonate with people? Because somehow the individuals will think, okay, this is something that happened to me, maybe to raise awareness to what's going on,
I think so.
in my routine, or with some of their friends or relatives. So is it something that you try to achieve with your work?
Absolutely, it is. I think that's one of the most important functions of theatre, is that you have this kind of communal live experience that can start a discussion. You can have discussions between the audience and the bar afterwards, and people can come and talk to me about what were you thinking, why did you write that, and what was your motivation. It's very accessible, and it is a forum for people to meet and exchange ideas with each other. So I think that's a really important element of doing things in theatre instead of in any other medium. And it is my hope that you can use the plays to kind of give people a new perspective on something they might have witnessed in their own lives. So, for example, in Unhooked, where I'm writing about someone who's left an abusive relationship, that's something that we know is quite widespread in society, especially since, I was saying earlier, since the pandemic. In the last 3 or 4 years, people have been through a process of reassessing their relationships and thinking about how happy they are in them, and maybe identifying problematic elements with them that they hadn't noticed until they were in this situation of maybe being confined with someone and being cut off from their usual strategies they might use to exit that relationship. So we know that it's something that's on an uptick, and we know that there was increased demand for services like the DRCC and women's aid during that period. So it's time now, I think, for the cultural and social discourse to catch up to that, because if statistically anyone watching this and anyone who's in the audience for Unhooked will know someone who is in an abusive relationship situation. It is something you're going to encounter. So what I want to do with this piece is give people a little bit of insight into the psychology and the emotional reality of the person who has experienced that abusive relationship. Because if somebody does come to you and is starting to open up to you and confide in you about what their relationship is like, it's really easy to jump to suggestions and to jump into giving advice and to ask, the really obvious question of like, well, why don't you just leave? I could come and get you. You could come stay at my house. So this is kind of exposing why someone might not take you up on that seemingly very obvious course of action and that very kind offer, and how you can approach that situation less directively and less judgmentally instead.
Yeah. You mentioned the challenges of leaving a relationship, and I was just thinking myself, what's harder? Is it to start a relationship with someone or to leave? And maybe leaving is harder, because people, like when you are in love, everything is pinkish, the future looks bright.
Yes.
You are very sure that this person is the right partner, so why not embark on that journey? So it's an easy step.
Yes.
And when you need to set aside all the things you built, all the projects that you had in mind with that person, and decide, okay, it's going nowhere, so I need to start a new chapter, and this person is not part of it. So I would say it's harder to leave a relationship than to start a new one. What's your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with you. I think one of the things I'm looking at in Unhooked is the kind of cultural and social scripts that we inherit for relationships. So we have all of these, fairy tales and the romance stories and the rom-coms all tell us that the course of true love never runs smooth. That's Shakespeare, isn't it? That when you're going through trials and tribulations, you have to commit, you have to stick it out. Relationships are supposed to be challenging, they need to be worked on. So when you're internalizing all of those ideas about what love is, if you're in a situation that is challenging and turbulent, just because the person's wrong for you, or the person is possibly even emotionally disturbed and harmful to you, how do you distinguish that from what you've been told love is like anyway? So I think that's the situation my character is finding herself in when we pick her up in the play. So yeah, it's hugely difficult to leave a relationship because all of the inertia and all of the cultural structures are there to keep you in it, to keep you in the monogamous, and maybe even legally keep you contracted in a marriage. So yeah, it's really hard to leave a relationship.
And I think on the psychological side of things, it's very hard for a person to assume that I just screw it. I pick up the wrong person, and I have to admit it and tell to others. So it's not just to societies, for you to tell to yourself, why was I such a fool? And I stick to this person for, I don't know, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So if you leave, you have to tell the world and yourself that you committed an error. And the longer you stay with that person, the bigger is the mistake. So that's why I think it's not really an easy move, because it's all about accepting your faults, your wrong decisions. And of course, people are not very, very prepared for that. It's very easy to point fingers when it is not pointing fingers on yourself, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is, isn't it? It is. And when you, if you accept that you had made that error of judgment, then after you have left, you can find that you've lost confidence in your own judgment for the future. So then it is harder when you meet someone new to assess, is this okay? Am I repeating a pattern here? You know, the loss of confidence that you can have in yourself is really, really profound. It can be a really profound consequence of being in a relationship that's not good for you.
Yeah. And you mentioned the pattern. So most people who leave a toxic relationship, maybe what they do next is picking another toxic relationship, and that's their sequence. So it's not just leaving that relationship; it's to walk away from the cycle. So
that's it.
That's why it's not that simple. They can leave person X and then pick person Z, and they are the exact same or even worse. And so it's still not that simple. Do you think modern dating made it more prone to toxic relations, or there's nothing about the way that people are dating these days that interfere?
I think that's an interesting question. I think these kinds of behaviors and these relationship patterns have probably been around for as long as people have been having relationships. But I think what's interesting about the new culture of dating, by which I mean the kind of digitally facilitated culture of dating, is that people do think they've got an endless array of options and think that gives them some leeway to not commit to a relationship. So it goes back to what we were saying about, you know, it can be easy to get into a relationship and really hard to leave it. And the apps are absolutely going to set you up for that. Really easy to find someone, and you can put on your profile, you know, I'm not sure I'm ready for anything committed, and you can kind of get yourself out right at the start of being in something committed that you might find difficult to leave, because you say up front, I'm not going to get committed to this. There isn't going to be a big breakup. Actually, one day I might just stop texting you. So people are really trying to skip that stage of doing the unpleasant bit. I think that's new and interesting.
Like in one way it's easier to walk away, but on the other I think it's easier to be caught, because let's say you say, okay, I'm not in the dating market anymore, but the moment you upload your profile, you can be visible for everyone, not only for the person you are dating, but others can see you, and then they can tell you, okay, let's say I saw Vitor on, I don't know, Tinder, which is like the dating profile, dating app number one, and that's it. It's public. So that's the thing with the digital dating, what I call digital dating, which is kind of a new thing.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think we are a same generation. I think we were born in the same year. I was born in '83. I think we're born more or less
we're the same age.
Yeah, so we experience both. We know the before and after. So we are in a, I'd say, I don't want to put ourselves in a pedestal, but there is some advantage of seeing the before and after, because you can always relate to how things were in the past, try to keep what was positive, and then adapt to the benefits of the digital, the dating sphere. Like I'm very open about it. I met my girlfriend through a dating app, and everyone thinks that dating apps are for hookups, and maybe most of it is hookups. But I don't think that's only it. It really depends how you approach it, and how you behave. And I always think that the way you operate will influence a lot the people you're going to encounter. So if you act like you are just hunting for instant pleasure, chances are that's all that you're going to get. And the same, if you stick to something that will have some duration, then the chances are much higher that you won't just not being with one person every weekend. So that's a big. What's your opinion, like, in dating apps in general?
I think you're right that you kind of get out of them what you put in, and you can use them for any purpose as long as you're clear about what you want. And I think the pitfall there is maybe not everyone is clear about what they want. But thinking about what you were saying there about the before and after, I think people have lost some skills, or certainly have lost some confidence. So this would be people, friends I have who are maybe 10 years or so younger than me, don't know how to meet people in reality. They don't know how to get themselves involved in activities where they might meet like-minded people, and then know how to move from that encounter into seeing them outside that context and building a relationship, or even building friendships with people, right? It's suddenly seems to be a little bit challenging. So it's really important that people do still have those skills. So I always, when people say to me they're not having any luck on the apps, I was like, just get rid of the apps, go join a hiking club or something, you'll have more fun. Even if you don't meet anyone, So I'm probably a little bit skeptical about the apps.
I understand, because like most people are just sticking to the app, and they're even arranging digital dates, which is something I never did. That I cannot understand. I think the app is there just to have, let's say, the initial chats, and then say, Ella, let's go for a coffee, let's go for a walk, let's go for I don't know, cinema, something. It's just to remove the first barriers. So what I really liked about the apps, I was very much into apps, and I'm open about it, is the triage that comes with it. So before the apps, you have to go to a pub, or have to go out. I mean, you can go to like cultural events and all that, but the typical trend is to go out, drink, and try to meet someone. And there was a lot of effort and sweating about it, which I never enjoyed. I can meet,
I know what you mean.
I can meet that girl that I'm into, and all of a sudden, her friend wants to go to the pub next corner, and that's it. I won't see her again. Or I'm just there with my friends watching a football match, and once the football match is over, I cannot speak to that girl anymore, because it's my friend who has the car, so we need to go back home. So there's a degree of autonomy about the apps, that I just match with a person, talk to her, and then arrange, say, I don't know, a coffee or a glass of wine, and we talk, the two of us, in private. So I think there is a big benefit about it, and it's just the two of them talking, and there's not much distraction. Of course, you are in a public space. I mean, in principle, at least I would prefer. And then you try to know who is on the other side of the table, and to present your best self. So I think, used in that manner, it helps a lot. But of course, if people stick just to digital things, it's very poor from a human perspective.
I think so, and there's a risk there. You were hinting at it earlier, before, about having the digital date. There's a risk that you can build an emotional attachment to someone without having met them in person, and that could lead you into being with the wrong person. We know it can lead to people being sort of exploited in all sorts of different ways and scammed out of money and all that kind of thing. So there is a level of risk in not getting to the in-person meeting quickly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it can only happen in person. It can only happen in person.
Of course. If there's nothing happening in person, then it's totally artificial. Yeah, I totally agree with you. So one thing I like about your performance. I mean, I haven't seen one. I'm going to be very honest. I look forward to see Unhooked in April. I haven't bought the ticket yet because I haven't done 99% of the things I would like to because I'm extremely busy. But I look forward to be there in April, so no excuses. But one thing that was really catchy for me is the titles of your shows. I liked all of them very much. I think you are excellent with words.
Oh, thank you.
Titles are quite tricky. Like for all the creators out there, we know you can write a fabulous short story. You can write a fabulous play. Like the content can be 5 stars, but if the title is not matching the quality of the content, then there's something wrong about it. But you are very, very talented with that. How do you come up with your titles? Is it before writing the show, after, in between? What's your creation process?
Oh, it can be at any point. I mean, sometimes if I've got a title I really like, that will tend to be right at the starting point of the project. So I think some of the pieces you mentioned porn, that was right at the start of the project, and I thought it was just so silly just to give it that really direct title. It made me giggle to myself, so I went ahead and did it. And then other people were like, what's that one about? So that worked quite well. Lovesick was just, I think I had the title before I started writing the piece. And it was actually, the title had come out of something that had happened in reality, so I was really attached to that title. That's about someone who's experiencing sexual harassment in the workplace. It's the systems administrator who is desperately in love with somebody, and she has to give him a new random password for one of his accounts, and she writes out "love sick" and the I is spelled with a 1, and it's all really, really cringy, and gives that to him as a kind of coded declaration of love, which was something that I saw really happen in a workplace, and so it just
I'm
never
not surprised.
left my mind, right? Just totally, you couldn't make something like that up. It's too bizarre. But Unhooked, I definitely struggled with that title. The piece previously had a different title that had come out of a line in the play.
Do you want to share what was the previous, or do you want to keep it confidential?
It was normal turmoil, which was a line in the play.
It's a good one as well.
It's nice, and it's because she was talking about having these tumultuous feelings about her relationship. And I think, like we were talking about earlier, Vitor, does that mean the relationship was bad, or is it the normal kind of destabilization you get when you fall in love with someone? So that stuck, but I didn't like it that much. Other people didn't like it, and then when I was
Unhooked is a fantastic title because it has the sexual element.
Yes.
It also resonates with liberty, freedom, attachment.
Yes.
Emotional challenge. So it has it all. I think it's attractive to a few audiences, and so it's, I think it's one of the best titles I've ever seen.
Great. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with it. I think it captures, like you say, it captures a lot of the different themes that are in the piece. Yeah.
So this Lovesick, it's about someone who is being harassed at the workplace, and you think is this something that needs to be addressed these days, or how much of that do you think it's factual?
Well, I still hear about it quite happening to people quite often. But do you know what's interesting about Lovesick is first of all, it's written from the person who is the harasser. So it's about them, and it shows you how deluded they are in thinking like everything this person does might be a clue to their feelings for them, but of course the person they're obsessed with doesn't even know they exist, right? So it takes you into their psychology and their delusion and how they're looking for little signs and things that aren't really there. But originally, I wrote I wrote Lovesick with a male protagonist. So it was a male systems administrator in a small office who was obsessed with a female colleague. And I couldn't get anyone interested in that script. So I decided to reverse the genders and make it a female protagonist. And then suddenly everyone thought, oh, this is a really kind of rampant dark comedy. Suddenly it was funny when the perpetrator was a woman.
Is the female character harassing the male?
That's it. A female character harassing a male character. Yeah. And that makes people laugh. Whereas the other way around, it's kind of a horror story.
Yeah, or it's we have seen it, in our day-to-day life. We have seen it in books, in Netflix. Like, there's no real need to see it again. So I think another thing you added to me is the element of surprise.
Sure.
Like, at least people want to know what this is about, because it's the next one thing I find interesting. It's always the man harassing the woman, and in most cases, yes. Like, I'm not defending here my gender, but there are cases that is not. And actually, in my own experience, I can tell women are much more resentful than us when it comes to rejection, and there's a huge reason for that, because we are rejected all the time. It's a fact, no? Like, most guys, when they approach a woman, they know that the odds of being rejected are, I don't know, 8 out of 10, something like that. And for women, is the other way around. Maybe it's like 1 out of 10. Like, for a woman not to get into a man, into, let's say, romantic terms, there are only things that can happen. Either the guy is not into women, so she pick up someone who is homosexual or something like that, or the guy is committed to his current partner, and he's fully dedicated to her and doesn't want to have any other affair, or there is no physical attraction, which is it's very rare. So we are talking about a very small percentage, and of course that mess up with women's psyche.
I think it can do, and I think also if you feel kind of misled in any way, I think that's something that can make people very they can feel a need for some closure on that situation that they didn't receive as it was playing out. And I think that is a motivator for people who've been rejected, definitely, to try and pursue and have a final conversation, all this kind of thing. But I think in Lovesick, the main character is rejected and has been rejected in the past and will be rejected in the future, because she does clearly have some emotional problems that are leading her to pursue someone who isn't interested at all in an unpleasant way, in a very unpleasant way, which can happen to anyone. It can happen to men, it can happen to women. I think one of the things I was interested in when I was writing Unhooked, I was very aware that I was presenting a female character who has been abused by a male partner, which is, it's fine. It's a representative experience. And maybe if I was a male performer, I might be able to write about a male protagonist going through that situation, but I simply have to work with the tools that I have available. So we have a female character. And I do feel a little bit sad that I couldn't get into a male experience of being on the other side of that, because they seem to me to be the most marginalized and underrepresented and disenfranchised population of people who have survived or experienced relationship abuse.
Yes,
We
100%.
about that. Yeah,
because it's kind of awkward for a guy. Yeah, it's kind of awkward for a guy to say, I was object of sexual harassment. Like, it just doesn't add up if a guy say that, and it can happen. it can happen. Like
Yes.
you can be chased by someone who is out of their mind, and if you tell that to your mates, they'll just say, "Oh, okay, just tell me you're not interested," and that's it. Because I think like it's hard for men to have conversations when it comes to emotions, so we end up in a extremely dark place when there is no one to talk to. So of course I don't want to play here victim, but it can be very, very tough for some guys,
Yes.
or,
Yeah.
or your friends can say, okay, just sleep with her for 2 times and she'll be happy. And it's not
Not
about
good
that.
advice. No.
That's not a solution. That you only make it worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's really, really hard. So I'm not overlooking that. It's just not for me to tell that story. But one of the elements I did want to look at in Unhooked was how anyone can end up in an abusive relationship. And I think there are a lot of people wandering around thinking, well, that wouldn't happen to me because I'm smarter than that, or because I'm very independent. And also you could be thinking it won't happen to me because I'm a man, but it could happen to any of those people. It can happen to anyone, can have the bad luck to meet the wrong person. So that's one of the messages.
There's another piece you have called Looking Seas.
Oh,
Can you tell me what is this about? Because I'm not very familiar with the terminology seas. So
how will I explain that one clearly? Looking Cis is a play I put into the International Dublin Gay Theatre Festival last summer. So it is a play about gender non-conforming people. And it's set in this world of reality TV competition where all the contestants have to be non-binary or gender non-conforming, and they have to compete for popularity and get voted out of the show. And my character is the first person to get voted out because she's probably about 20 years older than the other contestants and doesn't look gender non-conforming, doesn't look non-binary, looks like a cisgender woman. So the piece I was aiming to get at there is how there's a kind of new idea emerging that people who are non-binary or gender non-conforming should look a particular way. So if you are claiming that you're not a man or not a woman, but you look like a man or a woman, you're somehow some kind of faker, you're trying to get your woke points or whatever else, right? And I don't accept that. I don't accept that at all, because the fundamental proposition is that if there's no relationship between your identity and what you look like, then how can we be saying you don't look non-conformist enough, therefore your identity, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny. So that's what that piece was exploring, and we had a fantastic run at the festival. The audiences were so great, so encouraging. They responded to it really, really well. I was so happy with how that run went, and it's a really funny play, right? Because it's in the world of looking at how awful reality TV is, and how we feel about other people's perceptions of us, and the pressure that we're all under, whether we're gender non-conforming or cisgender or whatever we are, we're all under pressure to look a certain way. We all get feedback from people about how we look and who we are that we never asked for, right? It happens to all of us. So it's really diving into all of those things. And I'm going to bring it back. It's going on a little tour this year. It's going...
Oh, that's good news. So where can people watch it?
It'll be at the Brighton Fringe in the UK. Then it will be at the King's Head Theatre in London. And then I'm bringing it to Outhouse in Dublin in the middle of July. I think it's either the 13th or 14th of July. It's around Non-Binary Visibility Day. It's an event for that. So I'm going to do 2 performances in Dublin, because a lot of people told me they would have loved to see it when it was on in the Gay Theatre Festival, and they didn't get a chance during that week. So I'm doing these 2 performances so everyone can catch up, and I hope they were all telling me the truth, because I've hired the venue now.
Yeah. I know the feeling that people are saying, I'm going to be there for the show or for the reading, and then maybe 20% are there. I know the feeling. But look, I'm going to try to support you by putting the links in the description below.
Marvelous.
Everything you have, please share after.
I will.
I'm more than happy to add the links and make sure that you get like a big audience, because I think you deserve. So I will do everything I can from my end. There is also a dissonance between. I'm pretty confident you don't get offended with that, between your name and your accent, which I find very interesting. I actually, my first guest, just a short story. He grew up in Ireland and he's Belgium, so his name is obviously not French but Dutch, because he's from the northern part of the country.
Right. Yes.
They speak Dutch, but he has a very strong Dublin accent. So it's always funny, when he talks to others and he has to introduce himself.
Yeah.
How is that for you?
I don't think people know quite what to make of me, for sure, or what my or where to place me or anything like this. I mean, I have the accent I have because I grew up in London, but both of my parents were kind of migrants to London in one way or another. I have one Irish parent and one parent who's of kind of Polish descent. And yeah, you'd never guess that. Never guessed that from my accent, and I have all sorts of fun encounters here since I've been living in Dublin, of people not grasping that I'm an Irish citizen. But there you go. It's a funny thing, and Skolimowski is difficult for people to say and to pronounce. So I could have probably picked something a bit more stage friendly for.
Do you think our name interferes in the development of our personality and the things we chase in life? Is there any influence?
I don't know. You hear some very funny stories about nominative determinism and how people pick jobs or things that are directly related to their surnames, don't you? But I don't personally know anyone who's gone down that path. I don't know if it impacts you, but of course it's another one of these things that impacts other people's perception, isn't it? And people love, I guess, people love to try and deduce who you are from what your name is. And maybe I'm confounding for people because there doesn't seem to be any, there's no relationship.
I think in most cases there's no real impact, because people just have a name and that's it. But I believe in certain cases it will have a repercussion in how you perceive yourself and what can you do, as a human being. Like I remember when I lived in Budapest, I dated a Hungarian girl called Vera. Okay, so Vera, from the if you look at from a Latin perspective, how the name was created, is the person who is looking after justice and truth, and she ended up being a lawyer, and she always said it was a relation to her name. You might say it's a coincidence, but I think in certain cases it's not.
Yes.
So
sometimes people really internalize that, don't they?
Yeah. It's pretty to say, or it looks cool, but I believe in certain cases it's there. So, like in case of mine, there is an alliteration between my first and last name.
Yeah,
so it's something catchy. Let's say, the V and V. Now, I could have ended up being someone who wants to be on the shadow, is not interested in being on the spot. I'm not that guy, as everyone knows. But there would be a reaction. So you don't necessarily need to pursue what you are meant to be. You can also use that as a reason to be the opposite, especially if you are the rebel type, as some people are. I'm not talking about myself, or maybe I am. So, when you are told to be X and you decide to be Z just for the sake of not embodying what they want to be.
Not meeting expectations.
Yes. There's something tasty about it, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I think so. Gosh, what would you do? Would you go towards it or go against it? I'll never know. I don't know what my name means.
I think what is interesting about it is it can be a trap, because if you end up, let's say they want it to be, let's just use cover just to make it simple. They want it to be white, and then you say you are black, or other. There's something related to race. I'm just using that as an example, And but in the end, it's a trap, because you are still being influenced by the message you were given. Why do I'm not just whatever you are?
Yes.
I think we shouldn't care too much about labels. Just trying to be our best selves, and it's not a simple mission, but it's probably the most noble one.
You're absolutely right. Yes, I think this is true. That's one of the themes that comes through in Looking Cis, I think, about how labels they're not useful if you're kind of molding yourself to fit a label instead of picking one that describes you as you actually are. And that's something people fall into quite easily, I think. Especially now, this is going back, we're going in the circle of it all, because it's going back to the kind of online culture of how if you have social media, you are under pressure to have some kind of congruent personal brand.
Yes.
And all your pics on your Instagram should be about the same thing and have the same aesthetic, and you got to say who you are in a 100-word bio. I mean, I can't keep up with it myself.
Yeah. And you are absolutely right. And I think everyone now is given like a task, or have to be a brand.
Yes.
Now, I'm not here like endorsing normality, but sometimes it's missed. Like, why are you not just a person who is baking the bread and smiling to your neighbor and making people happy when they talk to you?
Yes.
Why you need to have some role in society? Not everyone is meant to be Churchill or Einstein, and that's just fine. But yes, the online role really instigates that behavior. That what are you here for? And it's also very common, like in let's say in those jobs, like let's say corporate jobs, that they try to paint them as it's something with an impact on society. Now, I'm not like sorry for my word. I'm not like shitting in corporate jobs. I think they have a space. They are necessary.
Yes.
But they don't need to be juicy like other things. Actually, the beauty of those jobs is that they are gray, so they don't create much noise. So they are they are underneath, adding their value, and that's all that they do. And hats off for that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There's that trend towards people in the corporate world having a job title that has totally obfuscates what they do. You'd never be able to guess. Chief visionary, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Architectureneer, I think, is one I've seen. I don't. Yeah.
What do you actually mean?
And all jobs, all of those jobs, just kind of involve sending emails and making PowerPoints, don't they? In my personal experience of being in the corporate world, it all comes down to email and PowerPoint, and that should be your job title. I make PowerPointer. No, I've gone too far the other way now. But yes, there's a lot of there's pressure. People are under pressure to make everything kind of exciting and engaging and hook people in. And
you cannot just have a job and a family and go on a holiday to Tenerife. You need to do something else, or at least you need to put that in the road. And maybe if you do everything well with your family, with your job, and go to Tenerife and don't mess up and return, you're already doing pretty good
that's it.
Life.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. One thing I want to ask you is about the play Citizens of Everywhere.
Oh yes. Okay.
It's an interesting one. So it's I think this one is not related to sex. I think, at least based on the title. So I wanted to pick one. I wanted to pick a sexless play, not because I have a problem with that topic, but I'll be interested in exploring this one as well. So one of the things you explore in your work is the migration and how people relate to the place where they live, what they can do with their lives, belonging, and all that. is there a relation between that play and Brexit?
Yes, there is. So this is touching on what we talked about earlier, Vitor, with the kind of the family background. So, being from the UK, but having parents who were not from the UK, who were there as a result of European migration. So my mother would have been an economic migrant to the UK, as many Irish people have been historically. And my father's family would have come from Poland after the end of the Second World War, because my father's uncle had been in the Polish army, which then became part of the British army. So a lot of people came to Britain from Poland. So I've always kind of thought of myself as a European person, because that makes sense to me, because I have 3 different countries in the mix there. And then the UK goes and leaves Europe, which totally destabilizes that, European and this strange other country that doesn't want to be neighbourly, doesn't quite have the same ring to it. So that prompted me, it was Brexit that prompted me to come and live in Dublin, because I do have that real kind of strong ideological commitment to the EU. I think it's such an interesting experiment with having a pan-national government. No one's really tried that before. That's really exciting and really at testing the limits of participatory democracy. I think it's thrilling stuff. The EU thrills me, and just the values of it, that you can be from all over the world. My parents were from 2 different countries. I live in Dublin now. My partner is Spanish. It's this amazing kind of melting pot. I love that. I think it's so important. And it really upset me to see it destabilized. So anyway, I'm going on a bit because this is because my heart is broken. That's why I'm going on.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
You think it was a bad decision from British people to leave EU?
I just don't know. I don't know how informed people were.
Too early to tell, or
I think some people. I don't know many people who voted for Brexit. I will be candid about that. Most of my social circle voted the other way. I do know some people who did, and who are still happy that they made an informed decision and that they felt it was the right decision. So that's great. I'm happy for them. I'm not happy for the people who voted for it, thinking it was going to, help fund the NHS or whatever it was they were led to believe, and have now found out that's not true, and who are standing in 3-hour queues at a passport line in the airport kind of going, what's happened? Why am I being discriminated against? I don't understand. That's a real shame that I think there is a population of people who voted for it without knowing the consequences, and I feel sorry for them. That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's really, really shocking. It's a bit like the last referendum we had here of if you don't understand the consequences, then be very be careful about what decision you make. And in retrospect, I'm not totally surprised that didn't pass, because people didn't understand it, and that is the safe option to take. And if only the same logic had applied to Brexit,
Yeah, no, I agree. Like in terms of information, it's very hard to know where is the good source these days, especially because the big players, they try to take advantage of those topics for their own benefit. Let's say they sit on the yes side, and for that they will reinforce their position, as politicians or as influencers in society. And those who would be in favor of no, they want to start a new rebellion. So they don't really care that it stays as it is, just a tool, to tell that they still have some place, they still have a voice. So I'm kind of skeptical in terms of the people who are telling you to vote yes or no in those things, because I'm talking to big people. I'm not talking to you, or I'm saying most talking about governments, NGOs, and media, corporations, press, all that. They're all agents. So it's very hard to say. So the best is try to make up your mind on what is it about, and not just rely on what you see, from the big organizations.
Yeah, but in a previous life, I had an academic career before I went on to all kinds of different things. So for a while, I was teaching in a university in the UK, and I was teaching in a humanities department. So I was giving people their kind of general introduction to European history and intellectual history. And one of the things we were supposed to be achieving through that course is to teach people how to critically assess information.
Yeah.
You give them lots of sources to read, you give them historical accounts that conflict with each other, and you ask them to use their judgment and make up their own mind. Now, at the time I was teaching, it was just after, I think, the Liberal Democrat Conservative coalition had been elected in the UK. So it was the beginning of this very long Tory rule that we're still seeing the consequences of. Rule. And one of the things they were saying at that time about higher education, they were gutting out the humanities departments. The department I started my PhD in was not the department I graduated in, because they were getting smaller and smaller and the funding was contracting and they were merging together and all this kind of stuff. They were really pushing this idea that if you want a proper education, if you want to be a proper economically productive member of society, you've got to do science, technology, engineering, or maths. STEM, STEM. This is what we want people to do. This is what we want to be competitive in. And they defunded and defunded and defunded the humanities. They have a population, they're raising a population of people who can't think critically. And I think that suits them.
Yep.
And now we see how much difficulty people have navigating information online and all this talk of fake news and all this kind of stuff, because that skill, the skill of critical reading, is essential to being a citizen in a democracy, and it's just under attack. The humanities are silly. They don't make money. We don't need them. Yeah, we do. We really do, because if you get rid of them, you're going to end up with Brexit. So.
I agree with you again. It's like we, the human. I'm most on the humanities side as my education and most of the things I do in life.
Yeah.
I believe that we are the core of civilization, and that's something massive. Now, it's not as profitable as other things, but they do matter. We are just underneath, and we are not that visible. So I understand that sometimes we need to be behind the queue. I get it.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that we are not there. We are absolutely needed. And if you are not, if you are removed, they are going to create an earthquake, like Brexit. Now, in terms of Brexit, I have friends who voted yes, friends who voted no. I understand both. I understand both. I just think that people who voted yes were very naive. They thought that, okay, Brussels will stay there. We will look after our country, and things will be fine for British people. And it's not that mathematic. It doesn't work like that, And the UK still has issues with migration. It didn't get any better since Brexit, and that was the main message of the yes, that we are going to give back the country to the people. Was it given back? I don't think so. Not that I'm not in England, so I don't want to make a big assumption, but probably not. So, and I understand that they were unhappy with some things that are happening in Brussels. I totally get it. But maybe the way to tackle is not to walk away, is to stay there and change it.
Yes. I think so. I mean, a lot of people try to link the kind of cause of Brexit to this Euroscepticism that has always been an element of some members of the Tory party. But I think probably in previous decades, there was a clearer understanding that if you want to change the club, you have to be a member.
Yes.
I think that's kind of what's been lost sight of. You're totally cutting off your influence if you leave the institution. But we'll still have to be subject to its controls because of little historical quirks like the existence of Northern Ireland. Right?
That's a big burden.
But I think a lot of people in Britain, especially my age, who probably don't have strong memories of the Troubles, don't know anything about don't know anything about Northern Ireland. Wouldn't know it's part of the UK. Wouldn't understand why there's anything controversial about that place. Just no idea. It's another example of people in Britain being deliberately undereducated.
Yeah.
So they don't question things. So
yeah,
it wouldn't have been a factor because they're not interested.
You mentioned Ireland, so let's talk about Ireland now and with England for a bit. So you choose to live here, and one of the reasons was Brexit. You also have your mother is Irish. Is there anything else you relate to? Is there anything about Irishness that is appealing to you?
I've always really liked Dublin. I think it was probably about 16 or 17 the first time I visited the city, and I thought it was such a pretty little city, and it felt like a very welcoming place, and it felt like a very manageable place. It still does, it's easy to get around, it's easy to navigate and find out what's going on in Dublin. It's relative to London, what's London up to now? About 9 million people. It's just so it's difficult. It takes more than an hour to get anywhere and all that kind of stuff. So Dublin feels very compact and manageable and just welcoming and comfortable and all of those things. But yeah, there's lots of things I like about Ireland. I love the landscapes. My mother's from Mayo, and I love going down to the west to look at the coastal landscapes down there. They're just absolutely stunning. Some of the most beautiful places in the world. I was at Glendalough last weekend as well, down in Wicklow. I had a friend visit from the UK, so I thought I'd take her down there, and I was just... it's a place I visited lots and lots of times. It's probably my 4th or 5th visit now. It's just stunning. It's got to be one of the most beautiful places on earth, and I don't know if we fully realise how much beautiful kind of natural patrimony we have in Ireland. I think we take it for granted, and should protect it and look after it and celebrate it a little bit more.
100%. Like Glendalough, it's like a place where you can go and you feel you can be there forever for the rest of your life. Like the road can go badly wrong, but if you stay there, you are okay. There's nothing that can mess up with you because you are protected. So there is something. There's kind of fence around it, even though there isn't. But you feel like here is the road, and I'm not there. I'm elsewhere, and there won't be any issue. And there isn't that many of those places on Earth. But Ireland has a few. I think it's not only Glendalough. There is something about Ireland when it comes of what's going on in the road and what's going on in Ireland. And I mean it in a very positive way. Like you can set aside the biggest headaches, of the planet and be in this country. So I really like it. Like I don't mean it as turning a blind eye, because there are things to be tackled and to be managed. But if you need to switch off, because we all do from time to time, Ireland is a great venue for that.
Yes, it really is. It really is. And I had a very similar feeling to what you're describing at Glendalough there. Yeah, and when we were walking through the cemetery there, my friend said something like, this wouldn't be a bad place to spend forever. And it really wouldn't. You can see the appeal of that. So
what better compliment than that, when you say I could be here forever. That's the best you can hear, and that's something I can tell from talking to you. I think we could be here forever talking, because we are now reaching an hour, and I feel I could be here for the rest of the day. But for the interest of the audience, I think we need to get into a closure. So is there any message you want to tell to people about your upcoming play in Smoke? What's the name of the place?
Smoke Alley Theatre.
Smoke Alley Theatre. Sorry, I'm very bad with those things. Is there anything you want to tell to people to encourage them to get on the theatre and see you?
Absolutely.
Any teaser?
Please come and join us for the play. It should be an interesting and amusing theatrical experience. Someone recently called the play something like theatrically tumultuous, which I thought was great. I don't really understand quite what it means or why they said that, but I love it. I'm theatrically tumultuous. So yeah, it should be really amusing and engaging, but also insightful. I think what I'm asking people to do in this kind of marketing piece for the play is not just, come buy a ticket and see the play. I actually want to ask people, if you know someone who has been in this situation or has a tendency to get themselves into this situation, or if you see someone starting off being infatuated with someone you think is bad business, why not just invite them to come and see a comedy for an hour? Right? That's an easy offer, and you never know what you'll take away from it or what kind of impact that could have. I'm hoping it's a starting point. It could be a starting point for people to have a conversation they need to have and don't know how to open. So it's an unusual marketing approach, but yes, please bring your friend who you think would possibly benefit from seeing the play. And it's on at Smock Alley Theatre from the 1st to the 6th of April. And you can get your tickets at smockalley.com/unhooked.
Good. I hope there'll be plenty of people watching you. I'm happy that they bring someone who needs help, but I'm also happy that they don't, because maybe everyone is okay. So there'll be a few who are there asking for for that support, but others will be just enjoying themselves,
enjoying the comedy,
having a great time. So a mixed bag. We expect life-changing for those who need, and a fantastic evening for those who are interested in seeing your talent, your sense of humor, and your creativity, and I will be one of them. So I look forward to that. So
great, thank you.
So thanks very much for this chat.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been great.
Cool. I think we covered a lot of topics. So.
Yeah, we did. It was wide ranging. Yes.
Great. So all the best for your upcoming show, for the one happening in July, and for all the others to come, because I'm sure there is a lot in scope. So yeah, a lot of success and joy.
Thank you. I will try it. I will try to enjoy it. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, take care. Have a good one.
Bye.